Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video, and in this video we are going to take on the Universal Survival Saga Extreme Super Battle Road stage. So this is obviously one of the new ESBRs, one of the, I don't want to say more difficult ones, but it is quite a challenging one. There's multiple routes to go in terms of team build. You can go for something like a Representatives of Universe 7 build. You can go for like a hybrid of all the different universes. You can obviously go for a Universe 6 type build. I wanted to go for a full Universe 6 type build. I couldn't find a friend Easy 8 hit. I could find a friend non-Easy 8 hit. Obviously they provide one to you. But I decided that I want to go for a Universe 6 build. I couldn't do that, so I went and took a Jiren, and then I just altered my team build a little bit to kind of obviously, just I want to say control that situation a little bit. But our team orientation is going to be pretty straightforward. So we've got a couple systems that are at work here, so we'll just run through the units quickly. Obviously we have Tech Caulifla, a super powerful unit for this stage simply through the fact that when she's facing Universal Survival Saga category enemies, she cannot be hit by them. So she's going to be a great foil for our tech hit. So the fact that she can't be hit in the first slot means that hit in the second slot, I know it's getting confusing, but just try and focus. Hit in the second slot will be able to activate his massive amount of defense that he gains on super. He will also then be able to potentially stun people, lower their attack, lower their defense, and all of those things are really going to help out. Then, in the other rotations, what we're going to do is we're going to have the Strength Kale. Strength Kale is going to pair up with the legendary Caulifla and Kale, who are going to run alongside her, and they're going to be a super powerful pairing as well. They're going to obviously proc Kale's passive, which will make her guard against all attacks, which is going to be very important for mitigating damage, and she's going to be able to act as a front slot tank for the AGL Kale and Caulifla, and that's going to progress a lot better as well. So in terms of the team build, you can see we kind of have a front slot tank on both turns in the form of Tech Caulifla and Strength Kale on the reciprocal turns. Then generally speaking, we have hit in the second slot, and we have AGL Kale and Caulifla. Now AGL Kale and Caulifla do a lot of good damage. Remember, they gain additional attacks just by facing Universal Survival Saga enemies. They also gain additional attacks when they're facing Pure Saiyans enemies, which will come in handy at some point. So yeah, that's going to be very, very helpful. Then we generally going to have, now the reason why I wanted to do a Universe 6 build for this was because we'd be able to have hit in the third floating slot, the friend hit, and that would enable us to carry an additional stun, that additional big level of damage. We would get an additional chance for his passive to proc, because he would have been proccing with the Universe 6 enemies, and yeah, it just would have been really, really good. So because we had to alter the team, we now have Strength Jiren and we have Tech Jiren. Now, Strength Jiren's very, very powerful unit, obviously, who does big damage based on if a unit is stunned or not. We also have his active skill, which could potentially come in use as well. But the Strength Jiren is not as powerful. Strength Jiren probably is one of the units that will in future be getting an Easy A. But Strength Jiren is really probably behind in terms of where he needs to be. He's okay because we basically hope that his passive procs, which will give us like free turns and that, but beyond that it's not entirely useful. And considering that the new Easy A hit pretty much has Jiren's passive ability to stun as long as they are Universe 6 allies, having 2 hits on a full Universe 6 team would really, really help in that sense. So that's why I wanted to go for a Universe 6 build. This build does get it done, but if you do want to use a team like this, let's say you want to copy this, please definitely drop both the Tech Ally friend Jiren and drop the Strength Jiren. Rather bring in AGL Caulifla SS2, who you can pick up with the Redstone currently. She's a very, very good floating unit with her attacks effective against all types that can proc, her evasion, her countering, and her defense gets up to a decent enough point. So she is a very, very good second slot unit and third slot unit, that good floating category. And then you want to take a friend hit And then you're going to have the double chance of the passive proccing. You're going to have the double chance, obviously, of getting his stun off as well. So you're going to have a lot more stunning, a lot more utility, and just a better kind of orientation than you will in this current iteration of the team. Because remember, by having Jiren, having these two Jirens and having them float, we're essentially losing the ability for Hit's passive to proc as often as it could. It could be proccing literally once every 2 turns, and you could have a hit on the other one, so you'd be having his passive with the ability to proc on 2 out of every 3 turns. With the way the team is currently built, we have a chance of a Hit's passive proccing once every 6 turns. And you can see that's a very big difference. By not having that like AoE stun chance proc, it is a very, very big difference in terms of just how he performs, how he does, and everything like that. That's not to say that Jiren and Jiren cannot be used in this stage. Obviously they can, because we get the victory done. But I would go for a more Universe 11 or just a more Universal Survival Saga hybrid build if you want to get the most out of them. I would definitely run the tech Jiren alongside someone like Int Topo. Int Topo will have a much higher proportion of damage and things like that, and guarding ability, and all of that will be very, very good. And then you can have Jiren just comfortably sitting in that second slot or that first slot, depending on where you want him. He can get his stuns off. He can be a lot more focused and utilized better. The way he is here, Tech Jiren, the LR, is very underutilized. You don't get to activate his passive skill. You don't get a whole bunch of things like that with using him as a floating unit. So yeah, that's generally speaking just something that you kind of just need to be aware of. Obviously we got Hit's passive to proc here, which is why you can see how powerful it is. We managed to stun the entire rotation. We didn't have to use an item at all, so you get a free turn basically. And Hit, because of his, his passive proccing, now managed to do a massive amount of damage. We managed to take out the AGL Hit, who could have been a very irritating unit for us. So you can see straight away how powerful that kind of combo is. Now imagine having that proc 2 out of 3 turns, or have a chance to proc 2 out of 3 turns. Imagine you could have had a hit in each rotation and have it proc literally, or have a chance for it to proc 1 of every single turn, which is perfectly viable, because if you have Strength Kale in your first slot, you have Hit in your second slot, and you have the AGL Cauliflas running on the 2 slots, Kale's guard will be activated 2 out of 3 turns. So it's a perfectly viable situation. So realistically speaking, you could actually do that with the Hit units. It's just going to depend entirely on how you want to orientate your build and where you want to take your gambles. But the Hit proccing his whole like AoE passive stun is a very powerful ability, because it just not only does it obviously give you that free turn, which is a very helpful mechanic, but it also makes his damage very high, because you're not waiting for him to proc his own stun. You obviously getting him to just kind of immediately get that big damage output, and from that perspective it's incredible, because he is attacks effective against all types. So you can do things like, and you'll see later on, and you've probably seen throughout the stage, how his damage can just be huge. Like he can just one shot / take out a unit to half health in almost one go, and that for me is a very, very powerful ability that we can't underestimate. Now obviously Jiren, the Strength Jiren, also has that to proc, but by having Strength Jiren on the rotation, you lose the ability for Hit to proc that. We could have that Strength Jiren sit with Tech Jiren in one rotation, which I did think about, but Strength Jiren's not powerful enough, at least my one isn't. A Rainbow one might be powerful enough to sit in a second slot with items, but definitely not as powerful as I want them to be in terms of a combination, although they are very, very good. So yeah, overall, honestly speaking, the team worked fine. It could have definitely been better, but everything worked as we needed. We obviously got the victory, so I can't complain too much about how things worked out, but it could have been a lot smoother. I think it could have been faster, it could have been better. I would have, genuinely replaced Tech Jiren with AGL Caulifla, well, obviously with the friend hit lead, and then that would have been a little bit better as well. But it's honestly just going to be entirely dependent on how you find things and how you are doing in terms of your team build and how you're going in stage. You might decide that having Tech Jiren and Strength Jiren as a rotation works fine for you. Maybe you have a Rainbow Strength Jiren instead of one with one dupe like me. Maybe you have found a Rainbow Friend Tech Jiren as well. All perfectly viable. It's just going to depend on what you're rocking at the time and how your units differ to mine. You can see here I hit insta-kill and Kaba, really great. This hit carries so much workload, and so for me, having two of him would have just been great. Even just to replace the Strength Jiren, like, it would have just been such a good, powerful combination. To just have two hits floating, just so much work that could have been done. So it is what it is. We couldn't achieve it, but I do think that if you do have hits, or if you are looking for what to focus your team build on, I definitely think focusing it on hits or bringing a friend hit is something that is just so, especially if it's a Rainbow one, it's something that's so unquantifiably good. Especially in Esbr, because he can stun, he can AoE stun, he debuffs, his defense gets to a good point after super, and his damage is huge. And for me, that's just so much that you just have to factor in. Like, you can't not factor it in, you need to factor it in. It needs to be something that you can, like, evaluate and control. It's just so good. It's just so good. But yeah. Obviously, we're going to finish up the second stage here pretty good as well, because obviously we've left ourselves in a nice situation where we haven't used the Dokkan attack, and that does help. Not using the Dokkan attack, saving it for that third round, is going to help us quite a bit. This third round can be quite tough. The units have, I don't want to say unfair typings, but they have typings that are a little bit annoying. Especially the Int God Goku, he can do quite a bit of damage to units like Hit, especially if you're running a double hit lineup. Even Tech Jiren with his high defense, he can definitely do some damage too. Vegeta causes some problems as well. Frieza I always find to be a bit annoying because we don't carry it with us a lot of Int units on this team. And then obviously you have the physical Super 17, who also, genuinely just causes some issues as well, gives us some grief. So, but overall we'll be more than fine. So we're going to activate double items, actually, and what we're going to do is we're going to save all those AGL orbs for the next round, so that we can get the AoE Dokkan attack with the LR, Kale, and Caulifla. They'll do some pretty good damage. And they'll be okay in that first slot with double items, so we're not too worried about anything like that. Jiren, you can see here, you can see I targeted the Int Goku, and the reason why is quite simply because Int Goku being removed off the field is going to be our best situation, because by removing the Int Goku, we are essentially going to be able to have a lot more control over Hit's level of damage that he takes, Tech Jiren's level of damage that he takes. And so that's a main concern for me, considering how much Hit especially will pop up in the rotation. The second focal point will be the Tech Frieza, because obviously again we have LR, Kale, and Caulifla, who are AGL, and we obviously want to make sure that they are in a comfortable position. So it is overall quite challenging from that aspect. But for the most part, everything goes to plan. And I can't say that a lot for a lot of ESBR, so this really went well. It went quite well to plan, and I was really happy with this. I'd like to bring Strength Kefla, or maybe the Tech Kale and Caulifla fusing unit. I think both of them would also be very good options, especially if you're running solely a Universe 6 lead team. You could definitely bring Kefla. She'll be a great floating unit with some good damage, which is always really helpful. So yeah. We get the Dokkan attack here, perfectly planned. We managed to obviously do quite a lot of damage. You can see there, we take out Goku, we take out Vegeta. We get a little bit of extra damage in on Frieza, nothing too crazy though. But you can see straight away we've taken out 2 of them, that's why the Dokkan attack is so powerful. We've taken out 2 of them, we've done about half damage to the other 2. We still have our items active until the end of this turn, so we don't have a big risk of taking huge damage. And we still have, the Strength Kale, who does quite a fair chunk of damage. She's going to be able to, hopefully eliminate the Android 17. She does a lot of damage when she's in these situations because she, gets multiple super attacks when facing X amount of enemies, when having Caulifla on the turn and things like that. So she does manage to do quite a fair chunk of damage to units like the Android 17. And now that's just left us with Frieza. We'll have Tech Caulifla next turn, who will evade everything he throws at us. We'll have Hit, who should be able to stun. We've got the Kale. So in this situation, we have full health. So even if Jiren does fail to stun, we shouldn't die. So there's no situation here where we do die, I believe. Kale has her damage reduction still, which obviously is super helpful. But we shouldn't die here in any respect. Obviously, Caulifla can't be hit. And Jiren hits like a truck, and Jiren will probably finish him off, especially if he crits, so that'll also be pretty straightforward. And yep, there we go. So that's it. Pretty fun opening round to the new ESBR. Quite challenging, but a nice stage that has quite a lot of options in terms of team build. You just need to find the one that best suits you and the units that you have. But that's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, leave a like if you did. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, bye.